Don't be fooled. Despite the title and the black leather couch behind me for unknown purposes of unknown origins and unknown levels of stainage, I am not here to try and sell you some kind of porn subscription. Instead, I want to talk about some of the hottest, as in most on form, performing the best, young, underage in terms of the Overwatch League. They're under 18 and so can't sign contracts and have to play in Contenders Korea. And Koreans, because they're Korean. And in your area, because they could well be coming to Overwatch League at some point in the future. So I've drafted a list of 10 players that are under the age of 18 playing in Korea who I think are going to be fabulous talents for the future, if assuming they continue at the same level as they're performing at the moment. And it seems to be the case that with a lot of young players, they actually just tend to improve rather than decrease in terms of skill over time. So I think these are people to keep an eye on if you're interested in potential signings or picking people up for mid-season, stuff like this. Some of these guys are super young. I mean, in fact, it's kind of useful just in and of itself because it's so interesting to see that these guys are performing at such a young age, and also that Korea keeps churning them out, and they have so many young players playing in such good teams and at such high levels. Because as far as I know, this really doesn't happen in the West to the same degree. So, uh, oh, you gotta pardon me as well because I'm almost definitely going to be coughing my guts out at various points in this video. I'm pretty ill at the moment, and it's pretty late, and that seems to trigger my cough. I've already had to stop and record this twice. I was 10 minutes into the last one. Very, very pissed that I couldn't continue it, but I got into a coughing fit. Okay, so the first guy that I want to... So I'm going to go through each of the guys, give you a little flavor of what makes them so good and why they've been performing so well. And then I'm going to talk about their age and kind of when in the year they're born. Because that changes things in terms of when we go towards the older people, towards the end of the video, um, there'll be potential pickups for in the Overwatch League. Maybe even, I mean, some of them would be potential pickups for Overwatch League Season 1 in the mid-season. So some people have overlooked them, I think, as well, because there's real talents out there. So if you're building an Overwatch League team, I don't know why you'd be watching it. Well, I do know why you'd be watching this video, actually. It's because I've got the skills, I've got the knowledge, and I know how to build the teams. And you don't if you're watching this video clearly. So when we started, the youngest guy that I've seen performing in Korea at the moment, we got a guy called Sparkle. Now Sparkle's the flex DPS player for a team called Element Mystic. Element Mystic won challenges last season. I think it was Challenges Season 5. They beat the Lunatic High Secondary team. They beat Seven. Beat a team called Bond Spirit Gaming, etc. And then they also beat Team South Korea in a show match just before they went on to win the World Cup, beating teams such as Rogue, teams such as who else did they face? Did they face Sweden? I actually can't remember how that bracket played out. They faced Canada in the finals. Who else did they face? China? No. Someone. Australia? No. God damn it, who was it? Finland? Oh, it was America, of course. Yeah, they smashed America. That almost seems like BM, but I generally just forgot that USA existed as a force in esports. How strange of me to forget that. Okay. So Sparkle, Flex DPS play for Element Mystic, is kind of their star player. So even though they have other guys who play Tracer on the team, they don't put so much of the emphasis on the Tracer, and really most of the burden of kind of playmaking and flexing over to a huge array of heroes and a lot of the resources go onto this guy called Sparkle. He's 15 years old and he plays as the star player for his team. And you'll see a theme recurring here. A lot of them are Genji mains. This guy plays a lot of Genji as well. I don't know what it is about the Japanese ninja, but I guess he's appealing in some sense. Swords and things. I don't know. And Sparkle is an excellent Genji. He also has the flexibility to play heroes like Soldier 76 to a phenomenal level. He plays Mei really well. He also plays Tracer occasionally for the team, although less often because the other guys that he plays alongside do play that to a pretty high level. And as I said, this guy's 15 years old. It's mental that he's playing at this kind of level, kind of carrying a team, not carrying, but being the star player that the rest of them play around. And this team is a top 5 team in Korea at the moment, I think. They recently came third in the Nexus Cup, only losing to X6 and Kondu Panthera, both of those playing at a pretty decent level. And one of the teams they beat was Lunatic High. Now, Lunatic High have another. In fact, they have two young players on their team. One of them, incredibly well known, played for the previous version of Lunatic High, which then became Soul Dynasty, and his name is WhoRU. And people will obviously remember this guy if you've watched pretty much any Apex. Was a huge part of why Lunatic High won Apex Season 2. I think he actually got the MVP vote in the finals as well after playing fantastically. Basically throughout the tournament, though, WhoRU was playing really well in Apex Season 2. Um, he was regarded at the time as probably the best Genji in Korea, maybe second best behind Haksal. I personally think that Haksal is probably the best Genji in Korea. And they put a lot of stock and resources again in this super young 16-year-old Genji main called WhoRU. Can also play a serviceable tracer, and now plays the same role for the sister team of Soul Dynasty, Lunatic High. I suppose they're not really the sister team of Soul Dynasty, but they're the new Lunatic High team essentially. His birthday is the 25th of August, so kind of slap bang in the middle of the year. Again, not really. 8th month towards the end of it, almost autumn. But come on, Josh, you can do it. And the other guy on Lunatic High, who also is 16 and also has his birthday at pretty much the same time at the end of July, is Alarm, and that's their Zenyatta player. He used to play for BK Stars. This guy isn't the star of the team in the same sense as Sparkle and WhoRU, and hasn't been playing at such a high level either. But he has bags of potential. His Zen in particular is really good. I think his Ana is pretty good as well. Um, and although I didn't watch him too much when he played for BK Stars because it wasn't a team that was ever really doing that much. It just had so BK Stars had a lot of good players with up and coming potential. I mean, they had guys like Twilight on the team. They had Carpe and Bunny on the team as well. They had Alarm. So this was a team that throughout its iterations had a lot of guys with a lot of talent, but never seemed to really have the veteran people to be able to actually glue it all together. Um, so I think that Alarm, now that he's moved over to Lunatic High, will have the ability and the coaching staff and the players around him to become one of the best Sens in Korea. I think he actually does have that potential, and he's only 16. Another guy that's super young, and again, we're going back to superstars here, is Decay. Now, if you haven't heard of Decay, he's probably, apart from maybe Sparkle, he's one of the guys that I'm most excited about to come up and develop because he's a 16-year-old tracer main, essentially, who plays for Kongdu Panthera at the moment, and his birthday is 27th of February. So what that means is if Overwatch League Season 2 runs at the same schedule, he could be signed in the mid-season of Overwatch League Season 2. If they push it back to align with stuff like contenders, so it begins in March, for example, then he would be eligible for the whole of Season 2. So he's a potential pickup. Now that we're starting to get into the older people, we're starting to get into potential pickups for the Overwatch League in next season. He is a star tracer. I mean, this is the kind of guy like Carpe, like Effect. You could potentially sign them for a Western team and see a huge boost in terms of performances. He's a monster. He's owl level caliber already. I mean, the first team that springs to mind that could potentially sign him is somebody like Houston Outlaws. We don't know whether Decay would want to move over or want to move over and play in a Western team or whether he speaks any English at all. I don't have these kind of answers. But certainly a Korean team could sign him if they didn't have monster tracers already. And there are other heroes in his wheelhouse that make him not just the tracer main. We've seen him play other heroes as well, predominantly hit scan, but also flexes over to stuff like the Hanzo every now and then. So Decay is definitely someone to keep your eyes on. As I said, tracer for Kongdu Panthera at the moment. Kongdu Panthera just won the Nexus Cup. And I would say that a lot of that is because of Decay's play. He is really a guy that you could build a team around as and have him as your star tracer, star hit scan in general, really. So if you think about it, if we were starting to build our team of underage Korean players, we've already got a Zen, a flex DPS, and a hit scan DPS as well. So we're halfway there to building a Korean team out of under 18 players that would play at a very high level. The next player you will definitely have heard of as well, kind of the rival of WhoRU, if you want to set up the narrative in that sense. It's Haksal. Haksal is under 18, can't be signed by Overwatch League teams at the moment. He is 17 years old, but his birthday is early in November, 2nd of November, I believe. He's the flex DPS player, predominantly Genji for Runaway, but also has played D.Va for them, also has played Lucio for them as well in various different iterations. I mean, he moved over to Lucio when they wanted to put Cox on Soldier 76, so he actually played a lot of that in Apex Season 4. Clearly has a mind for the game as well, which is something that you have to consider with these young guys. Normally, the young guys gravitate towards mechanically skilled heroes, that's why a lot of them play the Genji. They make a lot of hero plays. I think this is kind of teenage attitude, going for playmaking, stuff like this, not really appreciating the finer points of team play and working around and supporting others and helping them flourish. Stereotypes, obviously, generalizations, but a lot of young players tend to fit that mold, I think. And Haksal seems to not be in that boat. I know that Runaway put a lot of resources into him when he's playing the Genji, but the fact that he's able to flex over to Lucio predominantly and other stuff like D.Va as well for the team, and play other heroes in the DPS position as well, means that he's probably got a pretty good mind for the game if they feel confident running him on completely different roles. And so would probably be a pretty good pickup for any team, because Genji's probably not going anywhere in the meta. It's been a long time since Genji's been out of the meta. For good, you know. Um, what are some of Haxel's achievements? I mean, he made the finals twice in Apex Season 2 and Apex Season 3. No, that's not correct. Apex Season 2 and Apex Season 4. In Apex Season 3, the team was really struggling and trying to develop, but that's a story for another time. Haksal, definitely a guy to watch out for. Could be signed next season because he will be 18 this November. Oh, be careful of Korean age as well. Korean ages, like when you're first born, you start at the age 1. Like as soon as you're born, the Koreans think that, or not think, but the Koreans just say that children are 1 when they're born, and then every time it hits a new year in January, they all get 1 added to their ages. So you could have a guy that was born like Haksal on the 2nd of November who would be 2 only 2 months after he was born. They would say he was 2 years old 2 months after he was born. It's just a different system of aging people. But these are the Western ages that I'm giving you here. So he could be signed for next season of Overwatch League. The next guy that I want to talk about in terms of going up into in the ages is BERNAR. Now BERNAR is the least sounds a bit harsh, really, but the least talented, perhaps, the least successful player that I've got on my list, I think. Although that might possibly be Hoon as well, who's coming up. Both of them play off-tank positions. BERNAR currently plays off-tank for WGS Red, which is the old Luxury Watch Red. They just renamed, I think, or moved organizations. I don't really know what the story is there. And he used to play for BK Stars as well. As I was saying, BK Stars seem to be great at picking up this really young talent. He's 17. His birthday's on the 18th of August. So he could be picked up for next season of Overwatch League. Will in fact turn 18 just as the season ends, basically. And he hasn't achieved that much over his career, but he's been putting up kind of solid off-tank performances throughout the course of the seasons that he spent with BK Stars, and he's just moved recently over to LW or WGS Red. I think the guy could have potential possibly on a better team. He seemed to favor Zarya over D.Va when they were both in the meta back when he was playing on BK Stars. Certainly not a star in any sense, but if we're trying to create our underage Korean team, then throw him in. I mean that makes 4, right? We've got a ton of flex DPSs, so we can just have them rotating forever. We've got a hit scan DPS in Decay. We've got Alarm on Zenyatta. Okay, now we've got off tank. We've got BERNAR. We could also have Hoon, who's also 17, has his birthday on the 25th of May. So we'll turn, in fact, 18 as Overwatch League Season 1 progresses, but not at the mid-season, which I believe was the cutoff for whether or not you could sign people. But you probably wouldn't sign this guy anyway for an Overwatch League team. Along with BERNAR, the two least successful or with the least potential on my list, despite the fact, actually, that he played for Meta Athena when Meta Athena dominated challenges and went on this crazy 20-match win streak coming out of challenges and into Apex. What season was that? I think that was Apex Season 2. And they kind of built around Hoon Zarya because it was so good, and that was their style. They were playing triple tank at the time. They were playing a lot of really interesting niche strategies, like using May boosts and having everybody run around the back of Eichenwald and stuff like this on Dorado as well, with Libero in the team. But since Zarya's gone out of the meta, Hoon hasn't really adapted. His diva play hasn't looked that great, and now plays off tank for Meta Bellum. Got demoted essentially from Meta Athena to Meta Bellum. It's like the sister team of Meta Athena, into challengers, or what will now be Korean Open, I guess. Open Korea. I don't know how they're saying that. So you got BERNAR and Hoon, your off tank potentials for under 18 players, but neither with the same kind of caliber as the other people that I'm going to be talking about. And another guy with incredible caliber, incredible potential, but also has realized that potential and had a lot of success already is ErsTer. Now, you might not be familiar with ErsTer, even if you watch Korean Overwatch, because he actually doesn't play in Korea. He plays in the Pacific region for a team called Ardiont, who have demolished the Pacific region. They went utterly unbeaten. I think they dropped 2 maps over the course of the entire round robin. They went something bananas, like 27. Was it 27 matches? Maybe it was 17. I actually can't remember. I'm not going to look it up either. But it was a bananas win streak. They furrowed everybody in the playoffs as well. Dumpstered Blank and Flash Wolves. And again, he's the flex DPS. He's the Genji player. He is the best Genji in the Pacific region. They are a very strong team, even if they were to move back to Korea. They are definitely a top 5 team in Korea, and possibly would contend for the title of best team in Korea. We don't really know. He's 17. His birthday is at the end of May, so he will also turn 18 about towards the end of the season, actually, just after the halfway point, and so wasn't eligible to be signed. He's a very good player. He's got more of a loose style than the others. Can also play a range of heroes like a lot of these flex DPS guys. So would also be a great pickup for teams who are lacking a star Genji. The last two. Now we're getting to the point where you could have signed these two guys for Overwatch League Season 1 and they would be eligible to play, and you could still sign them in the mid-season. One of them has already been signed, in fact, and it's Flower. Obviously, everybody knows Flower. The guy has been what most people would call the star of LW Blue, and with the team that's now become New York Excelsior, NYXL. I think I would probably consider Sabiobi the star of the team, but definitely they put a lot of resources into Flower, and he has had very strong performances before in the past. He won't be playing with them this season, though. He will be playing for the Contenders team, the academy team that NYXL have, while Pine presumably takes over his slot as DPS for NYXL in the Overwatch League. But all signs point towards Flower joining Overwatch League and being part of NYXL in Season 2. He is 17. His birthday is the 14th of May, so that puts him slightly uneligible for Season 1, actually. I was incorrect earlier, which is why they've got him playing for the Academy team. Again, he's a Genji player, plays a fantastic Genji, also plays an unreal Widowmaker, like actually incredible Widowmaker, quite similar to Pine, in fact. Also plays a huge range of other heroes, plays the Soldier 76, plays the Mei, plays pretty much every hero under the sun. Very flexible player. And if he wasn't signed by NYXL, would be a great pickup for pretty much any team because he's that good. However, there is another guy who's... This is the first time I'm going to cough this whole episode. You wouldn't believe how much I was coughing the previous time I tried to record this. I got it. Okay. There is another guy who is potentially not at the same kind of playmaking level as Flower, but has incredibly consistent performances. very high level performances, plays a huge range of heroes in the same kind of vein as a flex DPS, and is actually eligible to be signed for the mid-season, I believe, if I understand the rules correctly, for Overwatch League Season 1. And I'm very surprised, in fact, that he wasn't signed. And I think this is because most people thought he was too young. But Architect is the name of the guy, and he used to play for Conbox alongside Asher, and was easily their standout player for me. I thought that he looked far better than Asher in the games that we saw, and gave the team real punch, even though they were just a mid-tier team in terms of Apex. So Architect is 17. He turns 18 on the 26th of February, which puts him in pretty much the same boat as guys like Super and Sinatra, I believe. And plays flex DPS at the moment for X6. And the the addition that Architect has made to X6 gaming has been phenomenal. I mean, this team X6 went from a reasonable team that did well in challenges and went through to play in Apex. They got an upset win over Envious actually in Apex Season 3, I think it was, and play weird compositions. Their tank Nosemite played Junkrat in that game. He played Doomfist when they played in the season afterwards, where it was the Doomfist patch. But they never really had uh, the power from their DPS duo. Their flex DPS normally is Godspeed, someone who isn't really known as a Genji main, doesn't really have the same kind of pop as a lot of these guys. And Architect joining the team has increased the firepower of X6 Gaming almost exponentially, to the point where they did so much better in the recent tournament. The Nexus Cup, they finished second behind Kongdu Panthera, I want to say. Actually, they might finish first. I'm just going to check that, because I can't remember the results of Nexus Cup. Even though it was incredibly recent, actually. It was like the last big tournament that happened. Who won this thing? X6. Okay, so I was incorrect before when I said that Kongdu Panthera won. Kongdu Panthera came second. Yeah. So X6 won this event, and I would say that they really weren't the favorites from it coming in on paper, based on their past results. But the addition of Architect made a huge difference to this team, and they basically just stopped. Yeah, I remember now the when the Nexus Cup went, they stormed through the whole of the top bracket. They just destroyed almost everybody. They had a couple of close games, but they didn't really look like they were going to lose series. They looked very powerful, and Architect is the beast that was kind of carrying them through a lot of the fights. But they had a good system. They were setting up Architect. They were putting a lot of resources on him, but he consistently delivered. This guy can play a huge range of heroes as well. He is kind of similar to somebody like Flower, or somebody like not quite as flexible as Sparkle, I would say. But the consistency on this guy's fabulous. So if there are any teams who have this slot that a Genji or Flex DPS player would fit into and would be able to work with the Korean, Architects is a great pickup either for the mid-season or for next year as well. And I think it's a pretty large oversight actually that he hasn't been signed, assuming that I'm correct in terms of how the rules work, that he hasn't been signed for Apex Season 1, because for me he is probably the next big thing in Korea. I mean, all of these guys potentially could be, apart from Hoon and BERNAR, I think, because they've all got so much talent, and almost all of them are flex DPS players as well, pretty much apart from Decay. Um, but Architect has got something special about him that I think he's going to really show himself to be a very strong talent in the next season of Apex. And so I find it incredible actually that Korea and Korean players at such a young age are able to perform at such a high level, and there are so many of them. There are 10 players that I've listed there that would all be Owl caliber, apart from probably Hoon and BERNAR, unless you put Hoon purely on a Zarya role or something like this, or put BERNAR in, but just as a supportive player, and he was kind of the weak point in an otherwise really strong roster. But in general, there is a huge amount of talent, and it keeps occurring. I mean, like there are a huge amount of 18-year-old players as well, and 19-year-old players, some of whom are playing in the Overwatch League as well. So a year ago, they were the underage up and coming guys. A year from now, I'm sure there will be tons more. So I think it's incredibly interesting and kind of uh, a unique aspect to Korean, whatever it is, culture, or how they approach video games, or what the children are doing, or how many people are playing video games, how accepted they are, stuff like this. I don't know what goes into it, but I think it's an incredibly interesting phenomenon that so many young players come out of Korea and they're playing at such a fantastic level. So the guys that I've mentioned, names in the description. You want to keep your eye out for these guys because they are the next hot young Koreans and they could be coming to your area. So give them a call.